I don't love my voice in my ears. I don't know. I don't think I like it very much at all. Eating the microphone thing. Wow.
Okay.
We will never go Facebook Live because I'm a fool. So it won't happen.
Okay. Noted.
Ever.
Well, I'm recording now, so. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Threads. This is episode something 20. What are we on? I don't know. 27? 27. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Oh, that's dedication. We're almost to 30. Well, I'm Ben, and my wife Andi is joining me tonight.
Hello.
This is our first time ever podcasting together.
Yeah, we're virgins. Well, not not like that.
Wow.
I mean, you know, it's our first
It's our first ever podcast
together.
In our own house.
In our house, in our office.
Yeah, we had to move a printer because it was in between us and it would be awkward.
There was no eye contact. We would have had to look at each other through a cubby.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't work.
No, not really.
Well, thanks for being brave enough to be awkward on this little in-between episode.
You know, I can't promise anything because I just had like a almost 12-hour workday today.
And let's be honest, it's Thursday. It's 9:30 at night. We were supposed to do this on Tuesday, but our kids' band concert was super long.
Yeah, it was. And so, anyway, tonight is good.
Yep.
Getting it done.
Yep. And then I get to edit it. So I'm drinking coffee. My wife's drinking water.
Yep.
So one of us will sleep tonight, hopefully. So yeah, episode 26, we had Erica Hammel on from Wyatt's Law. And totally random. We have super fans, I guess you could call them. And one of them is Tim. And Tim reached out to Jason and I and said, hey, I know of this lady that you should know about. She's doing some pretty awesome things in the state of Michigan. You should talk to her. So we said, okay. And turns out she has a son named Wyatt who was abused at the hands of, I got to get this right, an ex-husband's girlfriend.
Correct.
Yes. I struggle with terms sometimes. So, but yeah, abused at the hands of ex-husband's girlfriend. And this woman was a previously convicted child abuser. Like, this wasn't her first time, which is just horrible. And yeah, so Wyatt ends up being shaken and ends up with super traumatic brain injuries, retinas detached. I mean, he was not expected to live. And the first law enforcement officers responding were handling it as a homicide because nobody expected him to live. So, yeah, that was kind of a heavy episode.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So, well, what were your initial thoughts? I mean, being the social worky type of person that you are, what's your reaction? I mean, you're kind of jaded to stuff like that.
I mean, yeah. So those of you that don't know, I have a background in child welfare. And so working in foster care, I've heard a lot of crazy stuff. So I don't want to sound insensitive and say that, you know, this is horrible, or not that it's not horrible, but like, not that I haven't heard stuff like this before, but it just pisses me off. Like, it's just another failure of the system, I guess. And I just, you know, feel so bad for this mom, because so many times, you know, we see parents, like two parents or one parent that like has royally screwed up. You know, and so this mom really wanted to protect her kid, and I think had a gut, you know, feeling that something could be off, but didn't have anything to go on. And because of the system and because of, you know, custody arrangements or what have you, she didn't have a choice to leave her son with his dad. And then this happens. And so, so I mean, the social worker in me is like, damn it, you know, here we go again. Here's another, you know, instance where the system has failed this child, this family, and here he is living with the consequences of someone else's inability to control their own self.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and what's interesting is Erica did try to do background checks on this lady, and nothing came up.
Yeah.
And 10 days earlier, she had been sentenced for child abuse.
Yeah.
Were you aware that there wasn't any registry? Because that was news to me.
Yeah, no, I knew that. And so people can request to get a central registry clearance. So in Michigan, there's a central registry.
Is that where child offenders end up?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're convicted of a certain category of child abuse, like this woman is likely on central registry. I'm sure she is. If she weren't, then she would be now for sure. But if she was convicted of child abuse, there's no way she's not. The unfortunate thing about central registry is it's not like you can't just go online and look it up. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like the sex offender registry. You can, search in your zip code and see how many people in your neighborhood are sex crime people. But you can't really do that with child abuse. But there is a registry. It's just not available to the public, and you have to know how to access it, and you have to get someone's consent. Like they have to consent to having those clearances run. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be fantastic if we had some kind of registry like that.
Seriously. Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, because I was just going to say, if you're on central registry, you're technically not even supposed to volunteer at a school.
Yeah.
However, I learned in our district, they only do iChat, which is Internet Criminal History Access Tool is what that stands for. And they only do those background checks on volunteers. And that doesn't list whether or not someone's been convicted of child abuse. So they might be convicted of neglect, but weren't charged criminally. So if you're not charged criminally, that won't show up. So you could technically have someone who neglected children or did something else, and it doesn't show up on that in schools. So if there were some kind of registry, schools could even check before they have just any random parent in there helping with kids.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of the Northview soccer program that I work with, and the coaches. Obviously, they're background checked, but nobody's checking the central registry. And
I wonder if they're checking the sex offender registry. I mean, and for me, as someone who has licensed foster homes and has done, extensive criminal searching on people, I'm pretty good at it now. I know how to access things and look up people and tried lots of different ways, but there isn't a way to find out if someone is a convicted child abuser.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
Back when I worked at the nonprofit in Zealand, part of my job was volunteer recruitment, training, supervision as they got started. And now that I think about it, I sent in multiple central registry clearance checks, but I could only send them if I had the consent of the person. So in Wyatt's case, his mom, Erica, could have requested consent, but would have never gotten it from her.
Oh, I'm sure not.
So it's like this top secret information that not everybody has access to.
Right.
And you need consent to get it.
Right.
That's just ridiculous.
It's protected information, which, the fact that we have an animal abuse registry, I think that's fantastic that we have that.
Absolutely.
More power to, whoever got that legislation passed, and, they can check and make sure people aren't adopting animals to, do unethical things with. But these are children. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
These are human living beings, and there's no way to see if someone, a babysitter, anybody has abused children. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. No kidding. So, what did you think? I was just really curious about what were the first few moments, days, weeks like after this went down and Wyatt's in the hospital. And she just said it was kind of all just a blur.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine what it would feel like to go through that experience. I don't know. I feel like for me, it would feel like time just slowed down and just, I don't know. It's odd to think of it as just a blur that flies by, but.
Well, and I'm sure for her, so when something traumatic happens like that to us, our brains can't fully always process what's happening in that moment.
It's true.
And so,
I mean, look at our kids.
That's, yeah. So I think that's a protective thing that our brain does. Like, it kind of shuts down a little bit and makes things kind of feel like a blur because it just can't process all that incoming information. And I can't even imagine how many social workers she had to talk to and CPS workers and law enforcement officers and detectives and all these things. Like, I don't know how you could even keep it all straight.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It certainly is. My goodness. So she talked about how she saw this woman who attacked her child. She was in the hospital. I'm usually a pretty calm, peaceable dude, but if I saw her and was in range of her, I'm sure I would come at her. I mean, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and she said, didn't she say that she had like a social worker and somebody else kind of hold her back?
Yeah, there was a security guard, a social worker, and like one of the detectives, I think, pulled her into a room.
Yeah, you don't want to make it worse, and it would have only made it worse.
Yeah, and she made a comment that really ticked me off. She said, if I went after her physically, I would be charged and I would be sentenced to more time in prison than she would for what she did. I don't know. I mean, I see where she's coming from with that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I do believe that sentences for people who hurt children are not long enough. Mm-hmm. I mean, and we can look at, there's some dude that held a child captive and raped her for like, I don't know, a long time, and he got 14 months in prison. That's it.
14 months.
And she was a young child, like a young teenager.
Was that the girl, the bus driver?
That was a different one. Okay. That was the bus driver that raped a 14-year-old and didn't get anything, like got off.
He basically walked free.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And there's so many things at play there, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need tougher sentences for people that hurt kids.
Yeah. Erica was telling us about what she likes to do for fun, and she's like into Krav Maga and jujitsu. I don't know.
Badass.
Yeah. I was like, I don't want to mess with her.
I kept saying, I was listening to it in my car, and I just kept saying, man, she is a badass. Like, you don't want to cross her in a dark alley.
Seriously.
And I just think it's really great that she has found such an awesome outlet for, that aggression and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of bouncing all over a little bit, but that's okay. That's what we get to do on these in-between episodes. But, Jason, and you and him tend to think alike or see things similarly sometimes.
Yes.
Jason said that my but bringing up faith, he said it just sounded awkward. Did you sense that at all in the interview?
Oh, man.
Clearly it didn't ring a bell. So.
It didn't. I mean, I don't know that it really was awkward. I mean,
yeah. And sometimes I admit my style can be a little bit out of the blue and ask weird questions.
Yeah. But I don't know. I didn't really feel like it was awkward. I'm trying to remember. It was towards the end, I think.
It was, yeah.
So maybe it would have been better maybe in the middle or in the beginning or maybe let her kind of bring that up if that was something that was important to her. And
she did a few times. Yeah. Like she talked about she felt it was her calling. And she felt Wyatt was a miracle, and he absolutely is. My goodness. Yeah,
I was checking out her Facebook page. That kid is amazing.
Yeah. I want to meet him. He just seems like such a cool kid. And did you catch her age?
Yeah, she's like, 28 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, I look back, and obviously we had some crazy adventures in our 20s.
Our 20s foster. Were so old.
I know.
God.
Foster parenting and all of that craziness. That was stressful. I can't imagine dealing with my kid being abused to the point of death nearly.
Yeah.
In my 20s. And dealing with a divorce already. Ugh, it's just crazy.
Yeah, totally.
So, She mentioned that she thought that she'd be with her husband. Like, her ideal dream was to stay married and have 3 kids together. And so that fell apart.
Yeah.
And then obviously crazy girlfriend of the ex gets involved and things just go even more downhill.
Yeah.
Again, we've experienced loss, but hearing her story kind of put it into perspective for me. I mean, talk about loss. I mean, she lost her ideal marriage, her ideal life plan, and then tragedy happens. Yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Oh, not only are you a social worker, but you're also in this mental health field and helping people make a difference in their lives. And we talked a little bit about mental health. How can one recover from something like this? Like, it's crazy.
Well, I think it depends on a lot of things. And I think she talked about how she has a really solid support system and unfortunately lost her mom, but she said her dad is her rock. And so
I think her dad was in the background chiming in a couple times. It was kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. I didn't
I think
catch
that was before we pressed record, but he was like, "Is your Skype working?"
Oh, that's funny. But I think for her, it sounds like she grew up in a pretty decent home.
Yeah.
And she has, those positive connections. And so she has family support. And I think for her, she probably has a strong sense of resilience. She's obviously super, super resilient if she's able to do all the things that she's doing. But I have to wonder, had she grown up in a traumatic situation or had, been abused or something like that, how she would have handled, this situation. And not to justify anybody's abuse of a child, but you have to wonder, what kind of environment this crazy woman that shook him, what did she grow up with or what happened to her?
Yeah, and Erica hinted at that a little bit, just said that she did not come from a very stable family situation.
It doesn't sound like it. And so I think for Erica, it sounds like, and just based on what she said, I don't know her or know her family history or anything like that. But I do know that people are able to recover better from a traumatic event if they have that stable, supportive person in their life. And it sounds like she has that in her dad. So I think for her, she has a good sense of herself, resiliency, and she's been able to grow that by the things that she's doing. So she takes care of herself. I think that's the biggest thing. Self-care. Like she's got that, the Krav Maga or whatever it's called. Sorry if I ruined that. The kickboxing and the badassery. And she's got this greater purpose now. I mean, she's doing all these things that are fulfilling her. So I think that really contributes to her ability to recover from some super traumatic event.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Jason, hello. I mean, there's another example of somebody who experienced abuse at the hands of his mom and yet has been able to, again, surround himself with the support system and move past that. Well,
and I think I think it depends too, on temperament and those kinds of things. Like Jason is a cycle breaker. He really felt like that was important and didn't want to repeat that. And so, Jason's a great example of someone who saw the wrong and wanted to do differently. Yeah. And, so many people that have been abused as children will abuse as adults, as parents. And so somewhere along the line, something happened for him, or maybe there was, I don't know, Jason, I don't know if there was anybody in your life or that kind of came alongside of you, but, how awesome is it that he was able to end that cycle and not repeat it with his kids?
Yeah. I mean, in a sort of a different way, you're breaking that cycle too, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, but back to Erica, let's see. I had a couple of other things.
FYI, if you're going to look at the computer, you need to pull the mic a little closer to your mouth.
I'm so bad at that.
Working. Just push it a little bit or something. Geez, Jason, I'm doing your job right now, like making sure he's on the straight and narrow.
That's
My
true.
Lord, if this is what you deal with. Okay, sorry. Done.
Are you done yet?
Yep.
Okay. I had something and now it's gone. Like it just.
You said back to Erica.
Yeah, I know. And then I wanted to transition into more of, the law, like what people can do. And yeah, that's it. Sorry, it took a minute. Did I mention it's almost 10 o'clock and it's Thursday and it's almost the weekend? And I'm drinking coffee, but such is life right now. But you mentioned the other day that some of your work friends or connections had heard of Wyatt's Law.
Well, it wasn't. Okay, so it wasn't my work friends, but there's
I can't keep them all straight.
That's okay. There's a federation for the state of Michigan that basically talks about like child welfare and policies, and they have a monthly meeting. And so our program director always sends out like the Cliff's Notes version of what happened at these like basically they're big policy meetings, and it's kind of boring to read through all the notes, but she sends this nice like Cliff's Notes version, like here's what's going on at the Federation, because the Federation is the one that makes policies for foster care, and it trickles down to all the peon people, the little people that do all the work and
like
have to carry out these policies. Yes. And so anyways, it's usually nothing terribly exciting, but I'm scrolling down the page and I see Wyatt's Law, and I was like, hey, no way. And so it was just talking about how there's legislation out there right now to create this law to create this child abuse registry that would be available to the public. And so I emailed our program director and I said, hey, that's crazy that they talked about this. My husband does this podcast and they interviewed Wyatt's mom the other day and heard about her story. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. She's like, I would imagine work like the sex offender registry and that whole idea. So, anyway, it was just kind of cool that we had just heard about it, and it was being discussed at this federation level with all these people that work in child welfare. So I think it could be pretty impactful, and I think it would help our jobs on the front end too. Like, okay, they're not on the child abuse registry. We need to still check and make sure they're not on central registry either.
Yeah.
But, it could help us with some preliminary checks. Like, we get this random person that applies to be a foster parent. Before we even can actually check the central registry, we have to have them sign an application and do all this stuff. But we could preliminarily screen people and be like, okay, this guy is effing nuts and we need to send him away. Yeah. Or not even
seriously,
filter them out. Filter them out a little bit better. And we are able to do that, obviously, if they get that far in the process. But, I don't know. I think for me, I like to check early just to make sure, like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. Or maybe they had something early on. We can find out a lot, but it would just be nice to just look and see, like, oh, okay, this isn't even worth us doing anything with.
Yeah. I have all these great thoughts, and then I listen to you, and you're just so amazing that I lose track of my great thoughts. I was going to ask, she made a point that child abuse is not a political issue, and people are trying to make it that way.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy, that our politicians cannot meet across the aisle for something as basic as child abuse prevention.
Yeah. It's all about the dollars, honestly. And yeah, I think it's crazy too.
It's so unfortunate. And then there's groups like the ACLU that don't want this to be a thing.
Well,
how do you feel about that business?
That's really frustrating because usually, okay, so I'm a little bit more liberal than you are, obviously. I think everybody knows that. It's my social work background that keeps pushing me to the left a bit more than Ben, for sure.
I mean, I'm the one that went to Christian school, preschool through preschool through 8th grade. Took a break from that. Yeah, I did. Took a break from that and went to Zeeland High School, which is like debauchery central. Not really. It's actually a light version of a Christian school. And then I went to a Christian university and I was in a bubble. So My background is very sheltered compared to yours.
I went to a Christian university too, but that's a whole different thing, I think. But I guess for me, with this whole ACLU thing being against it, that really surprises me, I guess, just because it's about kids and protecting kids. Usually most things they fight against, I'm on board with, to be quite honest.
Sure.
But
I mean, if this was a battered women's registry, ACLU would be all over it.
Yeah, I think so too.
But why not kids?
I don't know. I think and I would love to hear their official position on the law and what they're saying. Is it that it's violating confidentiality? But I don't know what kind of confidentiality this is violating.
Seriously.
Because I mean, the sex offender registry, it just says what level or what degree and what they did.
Yeah.
So it's like a CSC level or degree 1, first degree CSC contact with children. Okay, that's all I need to know. So for child abuse, we don't need to know who it was against,
Sure.
what they did, the nature of it. All we need to know is it was a category 1 or cat 3 or I don't know off the top of my head the different categories. I think cat 3 and cat 4 are the worst. And it kind of goes down from there. So, category 4 child abuse, hello, this is not somebody that you want your kid around.
Right.
I mean, and I just think about screening babysitters and all those kinds of things.
Ice cream truck drivers.
Yes, creepy ice cream truck drivers that drive around purple trucks and look high. No. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel half the time, the kids talk about wanting to go places and I want them to fill out a central registry clearance form and submit to an iChat before I want you to. I'm serious. And now it's getting a little better because they're a little older and they can tell us things, but it makes me scared because... you hear things like what happened to Wyatt, but then when you work in this every single day and you hear about, what happens to kids and the things that kids see, it's scary.
Yeah. You almost want to shelter them in a way.
Yeah.
But maybe not to the extent of my sheltered upbringing.
Zealand Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Holland today for a conference and I was like, oh, it's so Holland. It just feels like we were joking. We're like, yeah, I mean, it would be really appropriate to go to Christian Chicken because we're in Holland.
It's
but we didn't.
It's such a self-contained bubble.
Yeah.
Holland is.
It just feels like it.
It's a beautiful town. Don't get me wrong, but it is just the people, the culture. I mean, it changes in the summer with all the tourists, but
yeah,
in the off season, it's just such an insulated unto its own little town.
Yeah, it's something.
That it is. So, do you know who our legislators are?
I'm really bad at this. I do know that David LeGrand is some representative. I think a state representative, and he's apparently awesome.
Yeah,
and has done some pretty good stuff. And then Debbie Stabenow her office is in Grand Rapids. Her office is actually in the basement of my therapist's new office, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, right off the Beltline.
Yeah,
I've been there before.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was hilarious was Jason was trying to think of his legislator's name, and he comes up with Pete Hoekstra. Pete Hoekstra.
He's a Zealand guy?
He was at some point. I think he was a legislator at some point in maybe not too distant past, but now Pete Hoekstra is the ambassador to the Netherlands. So sorry, Jason, that's not your legislator.
Yeah, so Representative LeGrand is serving his second full term representing the 75th House of Districts, which encompasses part of Grand Rapids. So he's pretty cool. I just read something about him the other day, but
I'm Googling who are my state representatives. I'm going to type it in because I would like to send an email to them and tell them that you need to support this. Let's see. Find your representative. Put our address in. And zip code. Let's see what comes up here. Oh, It's Lynn Affendulis.
Affendulis.
Yeah.
Mwah.
You don't like her because she's Republican.
I don't like her because the Affendulises are shady people, but that doesn't matter, I guess. She made it because, Affendulis cleaners.
Yep.
They own that.
And can we talk about gerrymandering? I just look at our map of the district she covers. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Why is it split up like that?
I don't know.
You've got a little bit of East Grand Rapids, of course, because that's where your strongest base is. And then it takes a little sliver through Cascade and includes Northview somehow. And then it goes up northeast, and it's a huge area. It doesn't make sense. So for as conservative sheltered as I may be, I don't think I'm that conservative.
You've gotten better.
I'm a moderate.
You've grown. Well, I think what happened is you kind of tried to be super liberal for a second when we moved to Oregon, and you voted for Obama.
Shh, that's not public. I guess it is.
Well, it is now. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Yeah. So, but then I think you've kind of come around a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I've just progressively gotten more left. And I would dare say I was probably more conservative when we lived out there than I am now.
I would agree with that.
But I think it's because I've spent so much time working with disadvantaged people and seeing the world in a different perspective.
Yeah.
I guess.
Surroundings have a lot to do with it, because I came back, started working for that nonprofit, which will remain nameless. I mean, you can look at my LinkedIn if you want, but super conservative. And then I went from there to where I am now, and it's a great company, absolutely phenomenal company, but the owners are known for being conservative Republicans, still amazing people. But yes, my surroundings are not liberal leaning at all.
Well, and it's interesting because the company that I work for, which will be nameless also, just because I don't want to think anyone to think that my opinions are the opinions of my workplace or do anything like that. But,
and they're not. We'll just put that out there for anybody.
No, they're not, but they're, notoriously, conservative as well. But
yet the feet on the street that do the jobs
they're
aren't.
not.
They're not interesting.
They're not.
There's a big disconnect there.
There is, and I think things are starting to catch up a little bit. So
that's right, because you're trying to be edgy Christians.
Gritty. The word is gritty.
Gritty Christians. Wow.
Yeah. Now you're totally giving away where I work, but
no, I didn't give it away. Well, we're 33 minutes in. My homework for myself before next episode is I'm going to write a letter to my representative and maybe even my senator, because I think this stuff matters, and
yeah,
I feel like I owe it to Wyatt.
Yeah.
And to all the other kids that are being abused at the hands of parents.
Yeah. I mean, I've met another child that is 9 years old and had shaken baby syndrome, and she's the most incredible kid you'll ever meet. And I can't talk a lot about her, but yeah, just knowing that happened to her too. And, not that a registry is ever going to stop abuse.
It's not.
Those things are I don't know what it will take to make that stop. I think education and support and
yes.
It's really interesting, and this is kind of a rabbit trail, but I was in a training today. I went to a conference in Holland called the Challenge of Children, and it was more of a, hey, this will be fun. Let's get out of the office and go to a conference that's free kind of a day.
Seriously.
But there's a speaker, and her name is Stephanie Grant, and she's incredible. She's an adoptive and foster mom, and she has her PhD and works in the field and lives it, and she's basically a badass.
Seriously, how do you do all that and still have a life?
I don't know, but she's freaking awesome. And so she was just talking about how historically we live in such isolation. Like three generations ago, you would have help, like raising your kids. And so you'd have, like a kin group. So maybe you'd have like grandma and grandpa super close by, or aunts or uncles or close family friends, where you had people that could help you.
Yeah.
And now they talk about, you might take a baby home from the hospital, and this is your first ever experience even caring for a baby, which 3 generations ago, they all took care of each other's babies. So when you had your own baby, you kind of knew what you were doing because you'd had that experience before. And so I just wonder if that's why child abuse rates are higher than they used to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, people are finding out more now and we talk about it more now, but I wonder if a lot of that stuff like didn't happen before because we lived in better community with other people. And now it's like, you just need to do it yourself. Like pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do it. You raise your kids and we want to be so independent, but maybe if we had better community support, we could end, some of this child abuse or like finding better support for people. And,
for sure.
And not to get on another soapbox, but, we talk about people, Christians want people to be pro-life and have babies and, be against abortion. That's all fine and great, but you also need to support programs that are going to provide for those babies.
Yeah.
And you need to love them after they're just fetuses in a womb. And you need to love their mom. And we need to remove that stigma for single moms and give them support. So they're not going to shake their baby when they're crying and they don't know what to do because they didn't want to have them in the first place, but they did.
Yeah.
We need to hold men accountable.
Absolutely.
There's just so much here that, I think contributes to this crisis of child abuse.
For sure. I just think of the coworker I had for a very short time. Oh my
gosh.
I remember that night very well. I was just we were about to go to bed and I pulled open the news app right before bed. I didn't sleep very well that night, but and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And I knew he was stressed, but I didn't feel like I had a position in his life to be a resource to him. I don't feel like he was seeking that out. So I think, yes, we obviously need to surround each other with love and support, but we also need to be comfortable saying, I need help.
Yeah. Well, and it's just such a stigma to need help. Like we just should have it figured out and we just do it because that's what you do.
Yeah.
No, it's okay to have help. It's okay to find help. It's okay to ask for it. We need to give it. Yeah.
And there is such a stigma. It's so difficult for guys my age to ask for help. I don't know if you have been paying attention to the news, but I think it's like 4 men within the last 12 months have gone missing, and then they find them in their car submerged in a body of water.
Yeah, I did see something like that.
So 30 something year old men feeling completely overwhelmed, like they can't deal with life. They're just choosing to, take their lives by driving their vehicle into a body of water.
Yeah.
And they can't find any cause. Like there's no medical reason. There's no car failure. It was intentional with all 3 or 4 of them. And it's like, that's why we do threads. We want to show people that you can work through these things and have those tough conversations and make it through so that you don't end up harming yourself or a child
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks for doing this tonight.
Yeah.
I know it's not like your favorite thing to do, but
well, it's not that I don't like doing it.
She kept asking me for a format and a plan, and I'm like, I don't have one. I was just going to wing it like I do with a lot of things.
Well, I just was a little worried because I know I'm a little bit tired. So I just wanted to make sure that I was going to make sense.
Oh, you did. And we're like right on the money for time. We're about to hit 40 minutes. And I think that's what Jason and Megan did. So,
well, I mean, maybe we should do 45 so we can be better than Jason and Megan. Ooh, just
it's
kidding.
On.
No, you guys did really good.
They did.
Yeah. No, I'd be curious to just hear Megan's perspective on this too, just with being a nurse and hearing about all those injuries and everything like that. My social worker, seriously, I was so angry just hearing her talk about this whole thing and how it went down. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm in my car and I'm glad I was alone. I can only listen to Threads alone in my car. That's when I listen.
Have you ever cried listening to Threads?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Why would I cry?
I don't know. Some people say that they tear up listening to some people's stories. Like
No, this didn't make me cry. This made me pissed.
Yeah,
like I was pissed. It was like that righteous anger, like pissed, and we need to advocate and do something different and make this happen because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I just think of Melinda, another one of our new fans. She said she could barely listen to the Alex interview just because it was so emotional.
Oh, maybe
You're not really the type to cry at things, though.
Maybe I am jaded. I don't know. I guess I just hear so much crazy shit all the time,
It's
like
your life.
all day long. I hear stuff, and I think after a while you're like, okay. And so sometimes it scares me that not that I'm numb, and I was not numb to hearing Wyatt's story.
No.
Like I was pissed.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I can't even believe.
Oh, I've seen that righteous anger in you before.
Yeah.
It burns.
It burns. So, but yeah, No tears over threads. Does that make me insensitive?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But how's this for snowflake, emotional, sensitive dude? I was just watching 911. It's like my new favorite show on Fox. And they had a scene where all these people that a dispatcher had helped, like she was a 911 operator. And this is fiction. This is not even real. And they did this thing to surprise her because she was thinking of quitting her job and because it was so stressful and she never got to hear. Is that
Angela Bassett's character?
I don't know. Who's that?
The beautiful black woman with the short hair.
No.
Was it her character?
No, she's not a dispatcher.
Okay. Got it.
But anyway, so somehow it's so fake and fictionalized. It would never happen in real life. But all these people that she took calls from are in a cafe with her, and one by one they stand up and talk about how she impacted their lives. And I'm sitting in my recliner trying to keep it together and not tear up because it's so stupid to tear up at that, but I was. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I cry
I'm the
sometimes.
touchy-feely, sappy one.
I'll tear up sometimes at like
Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. Or I just started watching a show called New Amsterdam. And actually your mother is blowing up my phone right now because she just finally watched the episode and I needed her last night to process that with. But
because you're busy now.
Mm-hmm. But that show is actually very good because they have like a psychologist guy and they do therapy with people, and they had a dude that had PTSD on there last night, and then all this other like crazy, like it's crazy. It's a public hospital, and anyway, it was the season finale. It was crazy. I don't know why we're talking about TV now. So
we're trying to hit the 45-minute mark, and I just feel like we're forcing it now.
No, nothing's forced. It's just rabbit trailing. So we should probably
I could press stop.
We could stop or. Yeah.
Bring it back to Wyatt.
I think Wyatt is a warrior for sure. I did check out, I started following his Facebook group and stuff like that. And I just want to say too, like, I think, like I said this a couple of times already, but Erica's a badass.
Yeah.
Like you are amazing and just such an amazing advocate for your kid and for other kids, like just a champion and a hero. And I will also, if, maybe you guys can post on threads, like on the Facebook page, like if you're local to Grand Rapids, here's who you can, email to, and here's a sample of what an email could look like, or here's how to find your representatives if you're in Michigan listening. This is how to do it. Because I think more people would do things like this if they knew how. And, I should know. I mean, and I'm trying to get more involved in like politics and like understand what's happening, but I don't know how either. So if you can tell me how to do it, I'll do it too.
And kudos, Erica, for being just a mom who was working in the dental field, and like you have no training, you don't have a social work background or any of that. You were just a mom
or a governmental background or political background. That's what I was looking for.
She taught everything she knows. She learned by digging in and doing the grassroots work. It's incredible.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. You are
to you,
awesome.
Erica.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning into this follow-up episode. We are going to be recording again on Sunday, and that will release next Friday. So we are going to be sitting down with a gentleman named Mike Hamp, who also happened to be on the Eric Zane show, and he also happens to be one of the winners of our Threads giveaway, that. He's got a pretty incredible story about how he overcame addiction and alcoholism and a whole host of other mental health related things. He's one of them that survived and is now working to change things in his life and to encourage others to do likewise. So super excited to talk with Mike, coming up on Sunday, and that will release next week. So until then, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good night.